what I'm going to take is this white layer is on the outside, and I don't know about you, but I'm just hungry just kind of looking at this stuff here. Yeah. Now, what we do here is we take this off, and sometimes I ask ladies to get some gloves on. Sometimes they want to dig in here. Some people just want to say, look, let me get out of here, I'm tired. You grab this, and I get two ladies to pull as tight as they can, and you cannot separate this. It's really hard to tear this. And in Latin, I'm not being funny, this is in your book, this is called dura mater, which in Latin means one tough mother. Dura means tough, mater means mother. I've always thought that'd be funny if you had a wrestler comes out, and now comes dura mater, and they say, they gonna win. That's one tough dude. But this is the toughest, fibrous connective tissue you've ever seen. Had one dude who soaked in water, he was chewing on it. He said, this is tough to chew on too. Redneck. Okay. So if you put this in the gumbo, no, but they'll be chewing all weekend, okay? Really tough. Now, if I were to take this on a test, we tore one off, and after they're out of the bucket, they dry out, you can put a pin in here, okay? So let's get some pins. It's almost like little, you want to do this here? Little hors d'oeuvres. I was thinking little parties here. Put some brain. What are those chewy things? Well, that's some sheep brain I brought back from the lab. If I put a pin through here, we could, I did one, say, what is this layer that's been penetrated? It's called the dura mater. That's superficial. Now, about 3/4 to 90% of that thickness is dura mater. There's a little bit of blood vessels, and you'd have to look under the microscope to see it. And it's called arachnoid mater. Like arachnophobia? What's that we're talking about? Spider. It resembles a spider web, the blood vessels. And you might see the arachnoid mater in there. So there's an arachnoid mater. And I love the way it says dura mater if present. Every one of these has that tough layer on the outside. So you see that wrapper on the outside? What's that tough stuff?
Dura mater.
Dura mater. Now what we do is we can come over here to the brain. These were called fissures and a sulcus. The folds was called a gyrus, a lot of folds. And I could stick a pin through here. I have been secretly thinking, I talked to my wife about this, if my boys decide to get a piercing, I said, I am going to get a pia mater piercing. I'm going to drill a hole in my skull, and I'm going to stick a pin in this meningeal layer that protects my brain from encephalitis. And so if they want to do piercing, I'm going to pierce my brain. How's that? They say you don't feel it because there's no sensory receptors in it. Would that be a way to really make a statement? Hey, that's Jared's dad. The guy's got that big arrow going through his pia mater. Pia in Latin means affectionate. It's like saran wrap that goes in every nook and cranny, like Thomas English muffins. That's the affectionate mother that holds tightly to the brain. So there are only two that we can really see. Pia mater, if I put that pin in there, say what layer of protection is that? Pia mater. What is this layer of protection that's over here?
Dura mater.
Dura mater. Very little is arachnoid mater. Can't see it without a microscope. Are you with me? All right. Dura mater, arachnoid mater. What is a fold of the brain called? Gyrus. Gyrus. That's good. Gyrus. Plural gyri. What is a deep? Here's a lateral sulcus over here on the side. You can kind of dig them out, and you can actually go in there a little deeper and a little deeper. I'm tearing out the pia mater. What's this deeper fissure called? A deeper, not fissure, a deeper fossa. Sulcus. A sulcus. So they want you to know what. Oh, I got juice on your thing. I got a sulcus. Now here's a really good picture of this boy here. I'm going to take that dura mater off, and I don't have to do much except tear down a little bit of the pia mater. I'm just tearing the pia mater out here, and I don't want to go too deep, and I will find the corpus callosum. And I will find that there's a deep sulcus. What's the deepest sulcus? And I can keep going deeper and deeper. And that's called the longitudinal fissure. It goes down the midsagittal plane. It's called the longitudinal fissure. Put a star next to it. That's a good test question. What is that? Look at that. I think how deep is your fissure? It goes all the way down. What's that bridge that is on the roof of the third ventricle? I'll give you a hint. It means bridge in Latin. Corpus callosum. And the word is a commissure. Commissure is a bridge, and that goes all the way down there. I could tear it if you want. Now, here's some interesting story. The commissure connects the right hemisphere to the left hemisphere. What we find happens is, in some types of epileptic seizures, the right side sends information to the left, and it reverberates backwards and forwards. So what doctors have found, some neurophysiologists will actually sever part or all of the corpus callosum, and it will stop this reverberation back and forth, and the epileptic seizures will stop minutes after the surgery. Is that neat? But it doesn't work for everybody. Now, don't try to do this at home, okay? You want to seek a neurosurgeon and see if they can sever your corpus callosum. This is for you, Mr. Forniker. Not on your list is the fornix. This is used to process emotional responses to smell. I once asked somebody, it was an thing, what do you think the fornix is? After we talked about libido and your desire for love, they told me it is the
act.
Well, no, they said it's the heart of all acts of fornication are centered in the fornix. I gave them full credit for making me laugh because I didn't think of fornication and fornix, but I'd never stopped. This was at a Christian school. I said,
So fun.
"Oh, that's an interesting one. Well, maybe it's true. I don't know. It's not. It's for smell." All right. Now, what do we call half of the brain? A cerebral hemisphere. Okay, we have a right and a left. Now, what do you call all of this higher brain, all of this gray matter and white matter? What's it called? Cerebrum. Now, let's go flip around here. There should be something. All right, here it is. It kind of looks like a little scrotum if you change the diaper on a little boy. This does the fine motor control. This is why we practice piano or flute or guitar. Same thing is the flying tomato. When he's doing all that fine motor control for his balance and muscles, it's from his cerebellum. That's practice, isn't it? You know who the flying tomato is, don't you?
Shaun White.
Shaun White. Say, those are tomatoes. He had an accident this season, didn't he? All right, the flying tomato.
He got busted smoking dope, too.
Well, that's true. At least they didn't find a bong in his gluteal cleft like Michael Phelps. Hey, what happens when the flying tomato crashes? What do they call it?
Prego.
He's the flying ketchup. I don't know if that's funny.
Prego's better.
His mama
You're
doesn't
about to
think it's
hit
funny. Now, what is this little thing that divides the cerebellum from the cerebrum? The transverse cerebral, is it a sulcus, a fossa, or a fissure?
Fissure.
How deep is your love? I really want to know. How deep is your fossa? It's as deep as it goes. Remember the Bee Gees? Saturday Night Fever? How deep is your love? See how deep that love is? That's a deep fissure. That's a crack. Crack is a fissure. Wouldn't it be bad the Bee Gees? How deep is your crack? I just thought that said. I think I'm going to say how deep is your fissure sounds better. I'm tired. I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning. All right, let's do your brainstem. All right. What we can do is take an intact brain and start playing voodoo brain with it. All right. Now you got to know this is your cerebellum in the back. Oh, this is your brain. This is your brain on cerebellum. Any questions, Michael? He remembers that commercial. This is your cerebellum. What is that brainstem structure immediately in front? 4 letters? Pons. The pregnant pons. Now that's an easy one to do. Let's see if it really looks like a pregnant female. Flip around. Oh, I think I see a baby in there. Look at that. Here is the cerebellum. This would be the pons right in front. Is that easy? I didn't quite get the middle, so let's see if we can do it. Here is the cerebellum. That's the arbor vitae. Remember that? The tree of life. And right in front would be the pons. Now, what would be the structure you can't see that would be superior? It's kind of around here. It's going to be brainstem.
Hypothalamus.
Brainstem.
Midbrain.
Midbrain.
Corpora quadrigemina. I've done this for a few years. What would be the structure that's inferior to the pons? Medulla oblongata. Okay? So brainstem, pons, and medulla. When you say medulla for brain, it's understood medulla oblongata. You don't have to say the full word. It's so common to say medulla. All right, pituitary. Let's see if we find one. Now, we had a beautiful pituitary over here. It kind of looks like a little guy's little testis. This here is the pituitary, and it sits in what bone? Cellular of the sphenoid bone. Okay? So that's a pituitary. It is below the hypothalamus. So let's flip it around, which is a little bit easier. Does it look like a voodoo brain already? I have some friends who are Haitians, so I always don't joke about voodoo. He says they don't do it, but they have friends who did. You don't tick them off. So this is the pituitary down below. This here is the thalamus. Oops, sorry. Here's the thalamus. What would be the area below the thalamus but above the pituitary? Hypothalamus. Where would you find your satiety center that says, hey, I've had 2 cups of coffee? John never has a second cup. You know that? What would tell you that you're happy? The hypothalamus, your satiety center. What does Lay's potato chips tell you? You can't just eat. I think they understand. They put in a salt and lipid on there that it doesn't trigger, or there are foods that are designed so it doesn't turn on your satiety center so you don't stop. They say that there's a lot of engineered foods to make us overeat. Potato chips is one of them. So here's the hypothalamus in the middle. I'm going to do hypothalamus. What's the thing below the hypothalamus? Pituitary. What's the thing above it? And it's a relay center up to the higher brain. Thalamus. Now there is, do you see this stuff that's dark? In the models, that stuff was red, choroid plexus. Here it's dark and it has blood vessels in it. The choroid plexus has what cells in it? Ependymal cells. All right, pituitary. All right, now we're going to do some more external stuff. I love this. This gets a bit easier. All right, this one works. This is eye fat, optic fat, that insulates and cushions your eyeball when you go jogging around. So there is a nerve in here. Look at all that fat. What do you think this nerve is that would be going over to this eyeball?
Optic nerve.
What number is it?
Number 2.
Number 2. He gets to say, I'm number 2. Now, what nerve, when it goes to the football games, can say, I'm number 1? Olfactory bulb is in front. Is that one easy? Now, let's do a hard one. Did you see it okay? I keep working with you, Celia. This is pituitary. What's the pregnant thing in the front? The pons. We start looking on the edge, and sometimes we can find it. Coming out of the pons, sometimes, we can see the largest cranial nerve. I don't see it on that one. Let's see. One of them was really nice. All right, this here is a pyramid. That would be a pons. All right. Oh, that's a bone. That's a bone. All right, there he is. Do you see this largest cranial nerve that's coming off of it? Trigeminal. That's some trick. They have the list.
5.
Number 5. Trigeminal nerve number 5 comes off the pons. What do we call the place where the optic nerves cross over? The optic chiasma. So here's right where they crossed over. Can you see they look like horns? And they cross optic chiasma. Do you feel pretty good about those surface structures on the brain? You see it? It looks just like the book. We'll probably ask you one cranial nerve, one meninges, and something internal. Remember, there's a dura mater, pia mater. Your mama mater. It does mater. Let's go over here to a frontal section. What do we call this superficial gray matter?
Cortex.
Cortex. We call it cerebral cortex. Okay. Now, what do we call this matter here that is not cortex It has two names. What type of matter is it?
White.
It's white matter. What protein made it white without staining?
Myelin.
Myelin. Good. Now the cell that makes the myelin is called in the brain oligodendrocyte. Okay.
Dendrocyte.
Those appear in lecture
Not
and lab.
dendrite. It's a dendrocyte.
It's a cell that has a few branches. Oligo, few. Dendro, branch. Cyte, cell.
Okay.
It does all of them. Now these, notice that they all come out and they head towards the thalamus. So this here is called the corpus striatum. Corpus striatum. Do you see that? The white stuff. Let's see if we can find it. This here is a ventricle, a little belly. What fluid would be inside the ventricle? CSF, cerebrospinal fluid. What is the name of this roof? Do you see the roof that communicates as a bridge from one side to the next?
Corpus callosum.
Corpus callosum. Typically, corpus striatum. Corpus callosum is pretty easy to identify, isn't it? It's always above the ventricle. This is the third ventricle. What is this gray stuff or black stuff that makes cerebrospinal fluid? What kind of plexus? Choroid plexus. There's a lot of it in there. This thing here would be the thalamus. Looks like a yo-yo. What would be the area below the yo-yo?
Hypothalamus.
Where would you have your libido center that makes you want to have intimacy with your sweetie?
Hypothalamus.
What about the place that says, I should have a Coca-Cola because I'm thirsty?
Hypothalamus.
What about the place that says, I should get out of the North Atlantic after I went for a swim off the Titanic? Thermoregulator center.
Hypothalamus.
They should have seen that coming. Did anybody see that movie, Titanic? When it just came out, I was teaching at Lee, and I said, hey, why rush over to see the movie? You pay $7 to see the boat sink. And then I stopped. I go, oh, I ruined the ending, didn't I? I hate to do that, you know? I hate it when people do that. I don't think they knew what was coming. All right. Thalamus, third ventricle. Now here's a little bit tricky here. Do you see there's a ventricle off to the side? What's the word for belly? Fluid-filled belly on the side. Lateral, side, ventricle, little belly with fluid in it. Now they connect and you can't see the little hole, and they go to, you could think of the lateral ventricles as ventricle 1 and 2. What would be the next ventricle? The third. There's only one more ventricle. It's hard to find on these models. It's between the pons and the arbor vitae. It's called the fourth ventricle. If you saw a homework question that talked about Beethoven's fifth ventricle, should you choose it?
No.
What are the total number of ventricles?
4.
Good. See, well, I'm a tricky dog. Here, let's see if we can find it. Oh, I think we might find one over here if we get it right. Here's a cerebellum. Here's a pregnant pons in the front. What would be the chamber? I didn't get it quite mid-sagittal. Do you see that? They didn't want to cut it. I don't mind doing this. If that was in the middle, what would be that chamber in between the pons and the arbor vitae? The fourth ventricle. All right. I've never seen a pineal gland more than once, so I don't think you're going to see it on the test. We tend to ask about 2 or 3 internal questions and 2 or 3 external. Want to review again? All right, let's see if we can do this. All right, what do you call this white structure here in the cerebellum?
Arbor vitae.
Arbor vitae, the tree of life. What is the structure that is in front, anterior to the arbor vitae?
Pons.
The pons. Is it part of the diencephalon or is it part of the brainstem?
Brainstem.
Good job. All right. This is my pons. What's the structure that is superior to the pons and is midbrain? What is the part of the brainstem that's inferior to the pons?
Medulla.
Medulla oblongata. What is the name of this roof that is a bridge from one hemisphere to the other side?
Corpus callosum.
And what's the word for a bridge? Commissure. Okay. Now that's the bridge. What is the chamber which is just below it that has lots of choroid plexus? Remember, this is a lateral ventricle, which is 1 and 2. What's the next ventricle?
Third.
The third bathes what structure? That's a relay center to the higher brain.
Hypothalamus.
Thalamus.
Thalamus.
Thalamus is a relay. There are two relays. The pons is a relay to the arbor vitae, and the thalamus is a relay to go up here to the higher brain, to the cortex. Does it all look the same, or do you guys see some different colors? All this stuff here, all this gray matter, is the cortex. There are two relays, pons and thalamus. All right, let's do something internal. Oh, what ventricle would that be? It's right. It's bathing the third. I'm sorry, I gave it away. It's bathing the thalamus. See this thing in the center? Thalamus is pretty easy to identify. It's just below the corpus callosum, and then there's the third ventricle in between. All right, let's do some nerves. If you have the nerve, what would this nerve be in the front that would pass through the ethmoid bone? This olfactory. What number would it be?
One.
Got one nose. All right, let's see if we can. Oh, I cut where they crossed over, but here's all that fat. This is ocular fat, but here is a nerve, and I can try to find. Oh, this one's even better. It looks like horns. Oh, I guess you should go bah. I didn't see it coming. They zapped me in the brainstem. What's this little pin? We played voodoo brain on his nerve. What nerve is that?
Optic.
Optic. What number is it?
2.
How many eyeballs do you got?
2.
All right. So olfactory was in front. Let me put one in olfactory. Where's the front? Okay, this is anterior. What is this really tough layer that surrounds? This tends to be the dura mater. In the brain is the dividing line. What is your central nervous tissue? And if something's outside, it's peripheral. Let me explain. The optic nerve passes outside of the dura mater. A nerve is really peripheral nervous system. It takes so long to realize all the nerves are truly peripheral. It had to go outside the dura mater for the brain. What's this really tough layer of meninges?
The dura mater.
Let me put a pin. I'm going to do this. When my boys come down with a piercing, I'm ready to pierce this layer. Looks like saran wrap going in the nooks and crannies.
Pia mater.
Pia mater. My boys better not get a piercing. All right. What is this fissure that divides the right and left hemispheres, and it goes as deep as the corpus callosum? Longitudinal fissure. That's a good word to know. Okay. What is this ventricle that's up on top? They're off to the side. What ventricle?
Transverse.
Lateral. There are two lateral. And then there's a tube that we didn't learn called interventricular foramen that delivers the CSF to the next one. And what's the next one called? The third. And the third is bathing the relay center to the higher brain. What's the relay center? Thalamus. And what structure is below the thalamus?
Hypo.
And which one tells you you have a desire for food on the way home tonight or a snack? Hypothalamus. What is the name of this fiber? Is it white matter, gray matter, or none of the above?
None of the above.
I'm going to say this to you because you got it. When it comes to brain and its nervous tissue, it's either white or gray. Do never choose both or none of the above. Okay?
I thought that was cortex.
This here, the cortex is the highest
It is, but it's
concentration
still-
of gray matter.
It's still gray matter.
Okay? And this is cortex here and all those folds. Now, what do we call these white structures that head towards the thalamus eventually? The corpus striatum. It looks like stripes. It's kind of hard to see sometimes. Okay, let's see what else we got in there. Here, what do you call this? That's in the cerebrum. That's that gray matter up there. The cerebral gray matter. Guess I gave that away. They just say the cerebral white matter and cerebral gray matter. The cerebral cortex is gray matter. Frontal section. Does this look pretty easy? Somehow something's leaking. I can feel it burning. The preservative just kind of burn your skin after a while. A lot of people, it burns your eyes. It's a close relative of formaldehyde. How do you feel about this brain? You think you could practice this in the open lab? Now, if I put this in a Ziploc bag and I put it around the corner, could we get this out and practice for 10 minutes again next week? Is it building your confidence?
Yes.
I don't really think this helps if you cut it versus I cut it and we keep putting pins and things. Is there something on there that you really want to do? But, all right. And you guys could suggest what your favorite structure is. What would be some good things you'd like me to put on the test?
Pawns.
Pons is a good one. What about this white thing here that is in the cerebellum that is just screaming? It's got 2 words. Is that a friendly one? That appears on many lecture and lab tests. What about this thing that is a white structure of a bunch of commissural tracts? If it's not on something, I will use M&Ms or a Skittle. What is that called? Corpus callosum, the CC, commissures. What about this thing here that makes all kinds of hormones, like develops your gonads, your reproductive organs, and it also works on your kidneys, antidiuretic hormone? That's chapter 16. That's AMP2. That's a toughie. What do you call your part of your brain that's your conscious brain? What do we call that? Cerebral. It's half of a circle. Hemisphere. Now they're really not a ball, are they? But so they still call it. It's kind of round, so they call it a hemisphere. We have right. We both have a right and a left. But we talk about one side predominating, being right brain or left brain. Is this not so bad? Brain. Does it kind of look like your model? Now, is anybody thinking Arby's right now? Because I always get hungry for meat. Or sometimes, no, they have a veggie pepperoni because they say there's brain and intestines in pepperoni.
I don't need to know that.
I know, I'm probably not going to eat pepperoni over here.
Who's going to have sausage? That's the stuff that